Hello and welcome to this month's drawing tutorial. This month we're going to draw the portrait of a girl with darker skin. I've measured my reference material and given it a frame and then drawn a similar proportioned frame on my drawing paper. I've marked off the center point on each of the four sides of the reference material and then given a few other marks between the center and the edge on all four sides. And then I have the same marks around the outside of my drawing paper, and that grid is going to allow me to work quickly and very accurately, because what you can do next is use those grid points to lay out the large shapes. So for instance here, the bottom of the chin lines up roughly with the G point, and the top of the head lines up halfway between A and B. Vertically, we're looking at the center of the face being right in the middle of the paper at 4, and the edges of the face lining up at 2 and nearly 7. So I'm going to use those marks just like that as I lay out the large shapes. So here's my 3, 4 down to G. I'm going to rough that mark for the chin. Then I know the side of the face is lining up with about the 2. Here's the cheek at E. So I'm not even drawing in full shapes at this point. I'm just sketching in the placements for the extremes. So the edge of the face, the edge of the face, the bottom of the chin, the top of the face. Once I have those basic marks in place, I can attach them, some light strokes just like this. And I am using those to sketch in the shape of the face. So for rough, quick placement, that grid really comes in handy. So now I'm going to go back. I'm going to use my kneaded eraser, and I'm going to start erasing some of those lighter lines and redrawing them more carefully. So I'm using the grid still, and I can also use my pencil as a straight edge and line up specific letters to see what bisects at those points. So right on the vertical 3 line, I'm going to have a nice edge for the inside of this eye because it lines up perfectly. The outside of the face lines up almost perfectly on my 2 line. So then I can take those back to my drawing paper and I can see that the edge of the face does need to be clear out there. So then I can erase all of these messy lines and redraw these in. But see how I'm still just working on the outside of the face. I need to make sure that these large shapes are correct before I ever think about putting in the features of the face. Now once the large shapes are in place and they're looking fairly accurate, then you can give yourself some guidelines. So I give a guideline for the center of the face, and I give a guideline for the eyes, which is right in the middle of the head. And then I'm going to place the features using those guidelines as well as my grid. And then once I have some hash marks for the placement of the features, I can quickly sketch something in. I'm not too worried about the shape at this point, just the size and the placement on the face. In addition to using the grid to help you place these interior features, you can also use a piece of scratch paper and make your own little measuring device. I measure the features placement in terms of the eye width. So it's 1 eye width between the 2 eyes on this face, and then measuring down from the eye, it's about 1 eye's width down to the bottom of the nose. From the bottom of the nose, it's about an eye's width down to the bottom of the inside of the bottom lip, and from there, it's an eye width down to the chin. So, given those lengths, I can do the same thing with the eye width that I have established on my paper. This eye needs to end here, then this eye needs to start here and end here. Then here's my mark for the bottom of the nose, and then here is for the interior for the bottom of the chin. So once you have those sketched out, keep your picture close and work on sketching those features within your guidelines. Notice how the outside of the nostrils line up with the inside corner of the eyes, and the edge of the mouth ends up with the center of the eyes. Once you've taken the time to sketch in your features, then you can start to fill in the tone. And now to do this, I'm just going to work from the top down, and in this first step, I'm just getting some charcoal on the page. So I'm just going to use some loose oval strokes like this. And what I mean by oval strokes is I'm moving like this. Work this way until you've filled in all of the tone. Except I'm going to avoid the eyes and the mouth because I know that those are going to be areas that need to be kept white. Then, once you have your flesh tone, it's time to smooth your first layer. So I'm going to use a chamois cloth wrapped around my finger and just smooth out all of that skin tone. Then once that initial pass of shading is done, I'm going to go back over and re-darken the skin tone. This time I'm not working in the hair. I'm re-establishing those darker values and I'm working around the highlights. So if you look at the picture, there's a highlight spot here and then on the areas that stick up. So the nose, the chin, the cheeks. I'm going to emphasize the darker tones and work around those highlights. So in this step, you really focus on seeing the large shapes of the shadows. So here's a shadow that extends down the forehead and then straight into the nose, under the eye, and on the side of the cheek. Then when I'm done with the second pass, I'm going to pull out a large stomp or tortillon, the largest possible for the area, and I'm going to blend again, but this time I'm going to use a lot more care, and I'm going to use circle strokes to disguise those pencil lines, go around and around, and you can see how in this stage my shadow shapes are staying a lot darker. So work this way until everything over the face is done and then we'll push it forward. When you filled in the tone for the second time, then you can go back and start to emphasize darkest tone and pick out the details in the same time. So that step is going to look like this. I get my stomp out and I'm blending closer to the little details like around the eye. Then I'll pick up my pencil. I'll add a little bit of detail to that eye, like a pupil and a basic iris, and I'm avoiding the highlight, and I can reshape the eye a little bit more carefully. It's much easier to see how everything is looking if you work up everything at the same pace. So here I'll make this eye at same level of completion, and then I'll start to add a little bit of detail and bring out the shape of the nostrils here. Once those are done to the same level, I can go in with my stomp and fill in that tone. I can blot in some shadow in the corner of the eye, and I can add some tone above the lid in that same method. So remember as you work that there are no lines on a face. There are only the appearance of lines because of strong areas of contrast. So you're going to have the appearance of lines around the nostril because the nose is so sharply defined. But whenever you put down a line, make sure that you blend out one side so that you don't lose your definition, but you don't make it look like an outlined mask. Here I'm going to redefine these lips a little bit better and give them a little bit more tone as well. And for the lower lip, it's a little bit more complicated because there are some cracks in the lip, so I'm going to draw those cracks with the pencil and put some tone around the inside edge. Then I'll use the stomp and I'm blending those tones out while maintaining the highlights and just clarifying those cracks. So I put down the tone, I blend out the line over and over the entire face. Then when I get back to the hair, I'm going to use my charcoal pencil on the side and I'm going to follow the direction of the hair growth just like this so that I'm developing some individual strands of hair. Darken it up at the top and at the base, and then make some lines that connect the two, but don't forget to keep some highlights in there as well. And I'm not going to go all the way to the edge of the face. I'm going to leave a little bit of a line here, some reflected light. That is going to help increase the realism in the face by making it look like there's just a little bit more three-dimensional quality. That same principle applies down here where the chin is juxtaposed against the neck. So this is the neck side of this line. The chin side of the line is actually going to be a highlight. but that's going to help the face look like it's standing up and off of the neck. So let me do that work a little bit, and then I'll come back to you and I'll show you how to finish up the mouth and do some work in the clothes. After working the drawing up to this level, you have to start tightening it up even more. So to do those details in the small areas, keep the reference material close. In the mouth, I'm going to go around the teeth. Don't think of it as outlining the teeth, but darkening the space between them. I'm darkening the corners. Remember, everything that you do on the face is on a round surface because the head is a sphere. And so you're going to have shading in the corners because there's less light hitting them there. I'll put in the gum in the mouth here just by dragging my stomp across the top of the mouth. And then I'll strengthen the line of the bottom of the top lip so that there's still some division there. Now I'll move back into the hair. I'm going to use a stomp and just gently whisk up some of these little individual hairs. And then I'm going to add additional charcoal on top of that. And the easiest way to make dark tones is to use a piece of willow charcoal, which is really soft, and it puts down a black tone really easily. So then I'm just darkening everything in the hair that is not a highlight. Now the last step here is going to be working in the clothes. I'm going to use some willow charcoal, and I'm going to add some tone in the light pink area of the shirt. And then I'm going to do just what I did with the face. I'm going to blend it smooth as a first pass, but I'll go around like this. I might keep it even a little bit lighter than what I see in the picture, just to help keep it distinct from her face. And then I'll go back in with a second pass with the willow charcoal and add additional tone where I need to. So here's this additional tone. Second pass, I will blend it out with a little clean paintbrush, which doesn't pick up nearly as much of the tone, and it does a good job of still keeping a smooth finish. So let me push this forward now, and I'll come back to you and we'll do just the final details, and then we'll be done with this portrait. Once you get the portrait this far, the only thing left is fine-tuning. Do that by keeping your reference material close so that you can quickly look back and forth and make those minor little adjustments. It's also going to help you at this stage to stand back from the work and give yourself some time away so that when you step back and you look at it with fresh eyes, those mistakes will pop out to you much more easily. The fine-tuning stage is really just a matter of careful comparison and then darkening up with a pencil, blotting out with a kneaded eraser, and blending smooth with a stomp or tortillon as needed. There's no trick to it, it's just a matter of taking your time and being very diligent. Now for the tiny little details like the hairs, you can do those either with a very sharp charcoal pencil, or you can move to a graphite pencil. Just make sure that it's very sharp so that those hairs are realistically small. I have some at the hairline here on top of the forehead, and I have some on the outside of the hair that are flyaway hairs. Then I'm going to use my kneaded eraser to clean up my outside edges. One of the sure signs of an amateur portrait artist is a smeary background. Now I feel like I'm at a good place to stop with this particular portrait, so I will say that is the conclusion of this month's drawing tutorial. I thank you for watching, and I hope that you've learned something about creating a darker skinned portrait that you can take back with you to your own studio. I also hope that you'll join me next month for another drawing tutorial.